Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for Prevue's webinar, Navigating Challenges for Women in the Meetings and Incentives Industry. I'm Prevue editor Lisa Simonson, and I'll be the moderator today. We are privileged to have with us today a phenomenal panel of experts. Rhonda Brewer, Vice President of Sales for Motivation Excellence. Norma Dean, Director, National Specialty Sales for Delta Airlines. And Anne-Marie Rogers, Director of Meetings and Incentives for Direct Travel. Thank you, ladies, for being here. But
Pleasure.
before we get to the discussion, take a moment and let us know where you're joining us from. As you can see, we have a chat going. So let us know the cities that you're in, and we can just say, yay, glad you're joining us.
Nice.
So also, feel free to use the chat for questions from our panelists. Don't use the Q&A because we won't see it right away, and we want to make sure to get to your questions. So we will, though, get to as many as we can, time permitting. So just a couple of housekeeping notes. This webinar is being produced in partnership with Visit Seattle and Visit New Jersey. So two opposite ends of the country, but thank you very much for your support. In addition, all attendees will receive one CEU from the Events Industry Council. Also, the webinar is being recorded, so don't worry about missing anything. We will send you a copy of the recording, and it will also be posted at our website, probably starting tomorrow. Also, please note that the white paper for today's webinar is in the chat for your downloading convenience. The link is there as well as a PDF. So let me see here. Sorry, guys, your messages weren't coming through. Toronto, wow. Monterey, Kansas City, Boston, terrific. Fantastic. Atlanta, okay. Washington, D.C. Great, guys. We have a really great cross-section joining us today.
We do.
So, and now to the issues that we are here to discuss. Our topic being navigating challenges for women in the meetings and incentives industry. So we want to start with advice for women trying to advance their careers or some thoughts about that. Our survey notes in the white paper that some women believe a lack of advancement is related to their gender. Is this a factor, and how might you advise or address this issue? Rhonda, would you like to start us off?
At least I'm happy to. I don't know whether it is or not. I think, some people definitely feel that issue, but I think some of my advice in ways to advance is I think, first of all, understand where you want to go. Because I think a lot of people just want more and more and more. And sometimes you don't really know what more means. More may mean, you just need a different type of role that could be, a lateral move, but yet it's still advancing your career. And I think you have to look at your advancement in career as just constant knowledge coming in and how you're gaining that and what you're going to be able to take away and be able to give back. So I think you have to understand first what advancement to you is, and then what are those goals that you have in place and how are you going to get there? And there's going to be a multitude of ways that you're going to be able to get to that. But, if you're always driven by just, title, that could, keep you from being able to get to the next level, because sometimes, again, a sidestep to be able to get to the next level, I think, is really important.
Well, that's a good point about a lateral move, or it's still an advancement in a career. Does anyone else have a thought about that, about lack of advancement possibly related to gender?
I'll jump in here because I think one of the things that women tend to do, and myself included, as I was coming up in the ranks at Delta Airlines, is that we aren't our own champions. Mm-hmm. We take this backseat role. And let me tell you something, every man, everybody out there, they compartmentalize and they can get over the things or the faults or the errors that they did. And we worry about that too much. Or we sit in the background and do all the nurturing and the work and all that. So if you're talking about gender kind of bias, I would throw that in the pot. Mm-hmm. The good thing is that this upcoming generation of people is so different than someone like me who's 40 years into the, being working for Delta Airlines. So I would ditto what Rhonda just said about know where you want to go. But more importantly, again, about sticking up for yourself. have a plan. I mean,
Mhm.
and discuss this, like, I mean, a concrete plan with your supervisor or manager, so that you can both talk about what is it going to take to get you to the next level. Is it, that senior leaders don't know who you are, so you want the opportunity to do a presentation, or that they don't think you add enough, you know, dollar value? Is that, do you need to go out and recruit some more customers, or do better with your goals, or whatever it is, so that there is accountability on both sides?
Mhm.
Because again, back to Rhonda's point, where people, and I mentored so many people across the company, internally and externally, they say, I've been here forever, and I should be I should be promoted. Well, doing a good job on at your job is the price to the ticket to the dance. Sorry. So I am particularly kind of, I hone in on that. But I don't know, Anne Marie, what do you think?
It's a great point.
No, I love going last because my two colleagues have hit all the great points and I agree with all of that. But I also think, for practical tips, I love have a great plan, but stick up for yourself, make yourself noticed. And this new generation is really good at that. They ask for what they want. I think they're better than we were. Be sure to ask for what you want and know your value. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about this, but having a mentor or several mentors. I mean, so many of my counterparts on this panel are my mentors, and we learn from every one of them. And I just think I see a lot of women in our industry really propping each other up, and I love to see that, where we're all really supporting each other, not just women, but this discussion is about women. And then we're going to also talk about this more too, is just get involved. So get involved with associations, get involved with SITE, get on a committee, and again, make yourself visible so that you get to know all these people, and you can ask questions about, what is it that you do, and that really helps you, as Rhonda was talking about, what is your next move. It really helps you see what other people are doing and how you can promote yourself, because I think we used to be afraid to promote ourselves. I mean, as women, we don't like to brag, we don't want to, and you sit back thinking, like Norma said, oh, if we just do a good job, someone will promote us. Well, no, that doesn't happen always. So don't be afraid to blow your own horn and ask for what you want. And I'm constantly amazed and amused by how good this next generation is at that, and think we
And
should all do that.
and I'm gonna tell you, exactly, on get involved. Check your value outside your
Mm,
organization.
agreed.
It's so much easier to sit where you are and not do that. I get it. When you leave the company or the organization, you start at ground zero, proving yourself. But it's kind of like when you have a mate and you look at them through somebody else's eyes, they look far more attractive than they have been for the last 20 years or whatever. But I digress. I mean, so get a little value kind of chutzpah from someone outside of your company that's used to seeing you all the time, and think about it, because the line of promotion may not be from within. Gone as
Agree.
a generation. I'm the last generation that'll spend my whole career with one company.
No, it's actually a great point. And I think there's two things that I'd love to add to that too, is I think you also have to be realistic about your timing, because I think sometimes, you want to just go from point A to point C in a year. And oftentimes that's just not realistic. So, talk to other people and see how, the path that they've taken and how long has it taken to get there. Not that it has to take that long, but there is some reality check that has to come into play on how quickly you can really get to the next level. Also, somebody brought up something in the chat about women think they have to be 100% qualified for a job, where men tend to really want, if they're only 60% qualified, they're going to go for that next role. And I think it's actually a really, really great point. I think we get down to the nitty gritty on exactly, I have to be able to do all this to be able to hear. And in reality, it's just a stretch goal. You could absolutely do it, but you have to be able to assess really your entire value. Just because we're in this, there's so many transferable skills that you have in whatever role you have. And I think it's being able to understand what those transferable skills are, to be able to communicate that in a job interview or as you advance your career. So I think it's understanding really your total value and being able to communicate that.
Amen, sister. Hey, Lisa, are you looking in the chat? I mean,
I am. I am. Um, these are fantastic comments. Everybody's hoping the next generation will greater leadership roles without the inferiority complex or whatever it might be, the kind of subtext that we're talking about here. Aim higher. Yeah, I mean, I will get to the questions as they come in, or we can save them till the end, but let's take them as they come in, because I don't want to lose anybody.
Do you see Joan to everyone about, she wants to discuss ageism and gender identity?
Yeah, that's our next question, actually. So
see,
we
Joan,
have,
you're timely. You're timely. Way to be in there.
so, I mean, this is a big point for myself, a lot of us. The lack of advancement, possibly because of age. Do you think women face age discrimination disproportionately? Does anyone want to kind of jump in on that one?
You want to start this, Anne Marie? You want me to?
Well, what I want to do, Norma, is I want you to say what you said to us when we were practicing for this call about ageism, and then I'll follow you. How about?
Okay, I think ageism is total bull, right? I mean, let me take that back a little. Let me take a step back on that. It depends on who's hiring, but here's the deal: if you're not relevant at any age, then you're going to have ageism, because the same biases that exist, me as a 60-something-year-old looking at a 20-something-year-old, are the same biases that 20-something-year-old is looking at me. So we have, especially in this culture that is value-based. We've all had the shutdown. We realize what's important in life. We've had this awakening about yada, yada, yada. But what really matters, and what matters is, do you see me? Do you appreciate me? Do you understand me? Though it's a different form of me. And what happens, the counter of that, is the cancel culture, and the temperament that, if you don't know, you're slow, right? Or if you don't do, and you know what, I have agent, like, I hate technology. Sorry guys, hate it. I like people to pick up the phone and call me. I like a handwritten note. I like all those kind of things. A text don't do it. So there are things where certainly people would look at me and say, oh, you're old, and I was like, but I am hip, right? So
Right.
it just depends on how you present yourself,
100%.
and so find what is youthful about you. And it may not be, because I can tell you one thing: the younger generation of today really, really wants to know the stories, and how you, I mean, the fact that we're all on this panel, the fact that, how did you get it done, and how can I work that in my life? It's just a different way of working. So, I'm not a ageism type of person, that because I'll get hired tomorrow, even at my age.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I love what you said, Norma, because I mean, it's all about making sure that you are relevant. So make sure, I mean, for practical advice, and I think we'd all say the same, make sure that your skills are updated. Don't be resistant to change. Embrace new technology, which can be scary. And I've heard so many people say, oh my God, AI is going to eliminate our jobs. Well, make sure you understand AI. Make sure how you can utilize this. And again, as Norma said, if we're on the other side of our, career, or at the, if we were a little bit more advanced, make sure you're interacting with your younger teammates to say, how would you do this? And on my team, when people come in and say, why are we doing this? I always say, well, what would you do? And so make sure that you're bringing those things into the conversation, because the way we've always done it is not the way we should always do it. And that's to be relevant. I agree about the ageism thing. You need to make sure that you are embracing the new things that we can do.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, those great points. I think there's also the value of what we have learned throughout the years, so you don't keep going down and making some of those same mistakes. So, the longer you've been in the industry, you've tried this, you've tried that, you've tried this, you've tried that, you've seen this, you've seen that, and you can learn and be able to share that, so you don't, with the next generation, be able to say, this is why can't do this, or let's look at it another way, because here's something that we know didn't work, but perhaps you have a better way of being able to get to that same case. So I think you can blend the two to be able to say, I've got this knowledge, you've got this knowledge, how can we make it better together for this next generation?
Mm-hmm.
And I know we had question in here about taking a step back from a promotion that may not be a good fit and still progress. Absolutely. I've known a lot of people, and it depends on what's going on in your life, whether it be, someone young and, going through motherhood and being able to raise your kids, and you may not want to be at the same level at that point, but then once they're at a certain age, you get back into play. That could be taking care of elderly parents. Like, there's all sorts of things that are going to come and play into your life, and you can't be afraid to be able to take a step back. Not that you're jumping out. Sometimes you may need to jump back out and jump back in, but to Norma's point, stay relevant. Stay into the conversation, stay into the industry. You can get into these webinars, be up to speed on technology, and then you can get right back in. And it may be that you're not going to, you may go in at a different level, but you're going to be able to get quicker up to that next level because of that background that you have. So don't be afraid to do that.
Yeah.
And to that point, sorry, go ahead, Norma.
No, go ahead, Anne Marie.
I was just going to say, to that point, if you are stepping out, just make sure you stay connected. Make sure your LinkedIn is updated. Make sure you're still reaching out. Make sure you're, if you have a chance, attending industry functions in your area, if you have a chance, so that you don't drop off the face of the earth for those 5 years, and that you're still, again, relevant. We're back to relevant. Norma.
So a couple of things I would say: if you're stepping out, if you're having kids or taking care of parents, there are management and work components to that. You're managing a budget, you're managing a team, you're doing communication. Those are all work behaviors that apply in a team and in a regular corporate environment. So number one, quantify what you've done. Don't just say, "Oh, I went to take care of my kids," and then okay. So what else did you do? Right. So that's number one. But secondly, there's a comment in here about that a recruiter, I think it was Joan again. Joan's buzzing in here pretty cool. You go, Joan. But you know what? There's a comment in here about how an older generation has an expectation of a certain compensation, right? So we have, the older you get, the more bills you get, or whatever the deal is. I don't know, responsibility, children, whatever. But that's a fact, Jack. I'm gonna tell you that, right? So as you go in, you think, "Oh, I made $150,000 here." So you need to understand one, and this always holds true. It's 1 month for every $10,000 of compensation that you want, right? So if you want, a $10,000 job, you can go out tomorrow and get it. If you want a $150,000 job, that's going to take a little time. So you're right. Be realistic that if you've stepped out of the universe, you're going to have to take a little downturn to kind of downstep to kind of, as we say in Delta, continue climbing, right? If you are at this price value and you expect the same or better, then understand the budget constraints or the financial constraints of the company that you're going to. If you're going to a startup, different. If you go into a different company, a big corporation, maybe. And then balance what the benefits are, because there's value in that too. So get a holistic picture, or my hand to God, you can go to Buc-ee's and be a manager of a deli and make $120,000. They have it in writing at the gas station. So if your objective is just to have money, then you can go to Buc-ee's and get $120,000. What is the value proposition of yourself and what you're looking for fulfillment?
Great point.
Okay, well, that
That's
kind of
my
leads
drop.
us
I got
into...
nothing.
Oh, go ahead.
Same.
Once I named Buc-ee's, it's done, right?
Got nothing.
They love it, Norma. And that kind of leads us into possible salary disparity. If you're looking at the white paper, or we'll read it later, there is a question about being paid less than your male counterparts. And even though some people feel it's happening, there are hard statistics to prove it, despite the Fair Employment Payment of 1963, I think, is when that was passed. But have you seen any improvement in this area? And what do you do if you suspect somebody is getting more money for the same job? Anybody?
I'll grab it. I think we have seen improvement, but I think a couple things. I mean, again, it's about direct communication. If you suspect that and you want to have a conversation with your boss, I think you make sure you have the facts, because people may say that they're, those might not be the facts. and have a meeting. And, again, talking about the next generation, they're not afraid to call it out and ask, but you need to be calm, not confrontational. And then I also think you need to be realistic, because I interviewed somebody once a couple of years ago. When I asked, what are your salary expectations? She said, well, my mom thinks I should make 90,000. And I was like, your mom thinks that, huh? I mean,
Thanks for being interviewed.
Yeah.
right. I mean, it was like, okay, you think you should make 90,000 because someone told you that. Again, as Norma said, what's your value proposition? And not, I think I should make this because I've been here, but what are you bringing to the table? So just make sure you have the facts and you can make a good case for it, and then have a calm conversation.
So here's the deal, and especially in corporations, for all those people that want to be promoted from within, I get it, and that you put your time in, but you will see a salary discrepancy when you come from the outside
Mhm.
versus when you come from within. I saw it when I was way back when, because it's many years ago, when dinosaurs roamed the earth. But when I came from reservation sales into sales, and then we hired people from outside, I was making a reservation sales agent salary. They could not give me that big of a leap, but someone from outside could come in at a bigger leap than I. So when and if that happens, there's accountability, right?
Mhm.
And so again, back to what your value is, back to the communication with your manager. Ask the question. On our team, where do I rank in compensation? Am I at the top? Am I at the middle? Or am I at the bottom? Ask the question. Because back to Anne Marie's point, if you don't have the information and you just assume, well, you know what they say about assume. So, you need to have those hard conversations. And when you hear the answer, then what?
Right.
Right? You can't just sit there and go, well, I should be paid more. Again, why? Or if you don't and they go, no, that's it. I'm sorry, that's what you're getting. Then you either live with it or you do something else.
Right.
Make a freaking decision. This is what I tell people. If you're not happy here, then go,
Right.
go,
And
because
ask how you're going to get there, though. If you don't want to go, ask how you can get there. And if they don't have an answer for it, then there's your answer.
Or do you
But
transfer out of sales to an
Right.
operation? Or do you go from
Exactly.
operations to finance? Or there's so many different areas within the company that the compensation model could be different. So, it's a business.
Mhm.
It's not personal.
Right. Great point.
That is a good point. And
But I
somebody
like
said,
what,
go
sorry,
ahead.
I like
Go
what
ahead,
Valerie
Hillary.
said, in the chat about assumptions about older women's capabilities being out of touch with technology. That's what we talked about before, is that you need to keep your skills sharp, and you need to not be afraid to promote yourself, that you're doing this, and let everybody know that, scream it from the mountaintops, because that's how you make yourself valuable and show your value proposition.
Yeah, create allies. If you can run a report and they don't think you have technology, then run a report and create value for your colleagues to your boss, or cross departmentally or cross divisionally. What are the resources that you have, and what are the
Right.
talents that you can have that you can promote yourself? While I tell my sellers all the time, if you don't go into your customer, internal or external, with a gift, and I don't mean tangible gift, I mean, here's a suggestion, here's a competitive, here's an idea, here's whatever, make the promotion of self a gift for others.
That's a great point. And I think you do that no matter what job you're in at any age. And that's going to continue to show your value to your manager and the corporation.
I had to write that down, Norman. That's another
I
good
know, that
Norman
was really good.
Yeah, remind me of that, because I don't remember. I don't remember anything, y'all. Then we're drinking and you go, remember when you said? And I go, oh, no, I don't. Oh, I digress again. Go, Lisa, your show.
Yeah, somebody has a question about the impact of hybrid versus in office, 100% face-to-face. But I'm going to hold that just for a second, because that will come up in a minute. Okay, guys. We do have a section on sexual harassment in our survey. There are obviously the most egregious and overt instances of this, and there are no questions in anyone's mind, but there are some subtle forms of harassment like off-color jokes or flirting, things that may seem harmless, and sometimes a woman feels uncomfortable in that situation. I wanted to ask you, do you think increased awareness of these forms of harassment would be beneficial? Because everybody knows the other overt kind, the open kind is not acceptable. But what about some of these more subtle forms? How would you speak up in a case like that?
Honestly, I worked at a company where they did a harassment training every year, which I thought was great. Everyone was required to do it. And I
Mhm.
think just by having that in place, I think it raised enough awareness because it's not just sexual harassment. I mean, it's harassment in general, and it comes in a lot of different forms. And I
Mhm.
think people need to understand what all those forms are in full and then be able to talk freely about them. And if you see that, then it gives you the ability and education to be able to raise awareness with your HR, your direct manager, whatever it might be. Or, it may just be a simple, hey, look, I just went through that harassment training. I really feel like that comment falls in there. So let's not go there again, or, it'll go elsewhere. So I think, sometimes it's just having those conversations, educating yourself on really what is absolutely not allowed. I mean, innately what some is, but you would be surprised at some of the other just regular harassments that really aren't tolerated anywhere. So,
Mm,
I think educate yourself and make sure you know that and then be able to address it.
good
I
point.
agree, Rhonda. And our company does that. We do, the virtual training about the harassment. And I have heard several conversations where people are talking about that. Oh, does that fall under harassment? And people ask, I've heard of people also ask, oh, I'm sorry, do you feel uncomfortable with this? So I think the raised awareness is fantastic. And it's far different than it used to be, where there was a lot of implication that, if you don't do this, this could affect your career, or even actually spoken, if you don't come to this meeting or if you don't show up at this happy hour, this could affect your career. I think hopefully we're long past those, but awareness is key. And again, being brave enough, as Rhonda said, to bring it up, just very matter of fact, to just say, hey, I'm not comfortable with that comment. So, because in our trainings, they also say by sitting by and listening to someone else being harassed,
Mhm.
they could report you to HR. So important to stick up for ourselves, but also if you see it, important to bring it up and just address it matter of factly.
So I'm gonna throw something in here because at first when we talked about this a little bit, I said, "Well, nobody's ever harassed me, and I don't know what that says about me." But that's neither here nor there. But here's the deal: harassment. When someone harasses you, that's ego, right? That person feels like they are beyond reproach. So, and as I thought about this, I thought about a couple of instances where some younger employees came to me because what you see is what you get. So they feel comfortable enough telling me anything because I'll say anything to anybody else. But so they come to me and I said to them, I said, listen, if you ever get into a situation where it's just you and them, then compliment their stupid ego. Say, you know what? I know you really want the best or you think it's really great, but let me just tell you how it's being perceived, right?
Yep.
And that way you compliment these idiots, and then you kind of stick it to them. So you get them in a vulnerable position and you hit them with, that ain't right. Yeah, I'm just
Right.
telling you the way it's coming across, it ain't right.
Mhm.
So it's about ego. That is about ego. If there's a problem, then seriously, what happens most of the time, and especially in younger employees or mid-level management employees, they think they'll lose their job, right? Or they think they'll
Mhm.
be blackballed from promotion because one person is responsible for their career pathing. If it happens again, then you need to have the courage to go and grab somebody like me or Rhonda or Anne Marie or someone you trust within the company and bring them over to that person and say, I just I want to witness to this.
Mhm.
And the person next to you will see this person kind of, as we say in South Louisiana, try to crawdaddy out the hole because they have put themselves so far in, they don't even see it because they're such egomaniacal maniacs to
Mhm.
even go there in this day and age, for God's sakes.
Agree.
Okay, thank you very much. So I wanted to get a little bit into the work-life balance issue that a lot of women face for reasons we've discussed, either because of family obligations or just basically wanting a work-life balance like we all do. Um, do you think there's more cooperation from employers when it comes to encouraging this? Or do you think there's kind of a penalizing for it if you try to maintain your work-life balance? And what are some of the metrics that you have for this? What's realistic?
Well, if you're not doing your job to begin with, there's going to be problems, right?
Right.
Don't tell me you need work-life balance and don't get your job done, right? And don't,
Right.
for God's sakes, don't let me do your job for you, because then nobody's happy, right?
Right.
So if you're doing your job and you're doing what and you're going above what's expected and putting some extra time in, because it is in sales and anything that we do in this hospitality industry, it is not a 9 to 5.
Mm-mm.
Right.
I
Mhm.
will tell you that younger
Oh,
employees are much better than that than I ever was, and people who have who do, I'm one of those childless cat women. So I tend to overdo, in a leadership position. I think I'm running the world. So yeah, I fall right into that kind of
mhm.
thing. Not so much at this point in my career, but yeah, I mean,
Yeah, we had a session actually in Turkey at Site, and the women in leadership kind of led these executive coaching sessions. And one of them that we talked about, it's really more about work-life integration, because there's such a fine line between work and personal life, especially in the industry that we're in. And I think you have to just figure out how you can make it all work better together. And so it's not always balanced. And I think you have to be super realistic that it's just not always going to be balanced. There is going to be times when your head's down, getting ready to operate a program, and everything is just crazy, and that's where you need to focus. But then there's other times when you have to focus on your family because you've got something else going on, and that's what's most important. So I think having to figure out the give and takes, I think, is a really important piece of it, and being able to forgive yourself, because I think as women we put so much pressure on ourselves, and you're just trying to be everything to everyone, and that's never going to change, and that's awesome. But you've got to be able to forgive yourself when you're not able to do everything all at once. So I think it's, figuring out that balance when you can really, how you integrate it the best and what works for you, and not being so hard on yourself.
Agreed.
Something,
And I think to
go ahead.
Norma's point, Norma said, you know, being of her age and of a childless person, and Jenny addressed this in the chat, that a problem she's had not having children, she's been expected to cover for those with kids. And I think to Norma's point, do your job and don't use the
Hmm.
fact that you have kids or this as an excuse, and make sure that, and as a manager, we need to make sure that we're treating all the people on our team fairly. But I think this younger generation is really good at speaking up for themselves. But I also think we all have to realize, like Rhonda said, when you're in program mode, when you're in certain modes, you're not going to have work-life balance. You're not going to be able to go to yoga at 4 o'clock today, maybe next week once the program's over. But making sure that people on your team understand that that's a goal. And of course, we all have that goal now, that we can't just work all the time. And our smart devices, are good and bad, because you try not to answer, I have employees that say, well, I'm not going to answer emails after 5 p.m. Okay, well, that's great. That's a great goal. But there are times when you do and you have to. So I think just the awareness of it, just like some of the other things we talked about, and really trying to make it a goal, but also making sure that you communicate that, in our industry, as Rhonda said, it's not always possible to just work 9 to 5 or those kinds of things. So making sure as a whole that you're getting that balance. And I think just even having the goal helps all of us.
Somebody's asking, can you define what you mean when you say the younger generation? Is it Gen Z, Gen Y? Uh,
it's LMNOP. I'm gonna tell you what, whatever you call yourself. I just think if you're between the ages of 20 and say 35,
Hmm.
it's a different generation, right? You get,
right.
I mean, thank God they didn't have cell phones when I was 20. But anyways, when you get in your 20s, it's about, kind of feeling it out, looking at direction, trying on this new business suit that you went through college, you're ready to be a professional and jump in, and the world is your oyster. You get to your 30s and you get like most people, get married or whatever and start a family or buy a house, having, like big adult kind of responsibilities, right? That they call them. You get to your 40s and you start thinking, oh, what did I do? Did I make a mistake? And the easiest thing to point to is a career,
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
Because to disrupt your home life, and I was married for 18 years before I got a divorce. So the easiest thing to point to was my career because I wasn't progressing. Yet my marriage at home was terrible, right? So then you get to the 40s and you're evaluating, what am I doing and what's the rest of my life? You get to your 50s and it was the best years of my life where I said, this is the woman I'm meant to be, right? And so either I'm going to go with it, which I did, and then you get to the 60s and you go, well, that's behind me. Now what am I going to do when I have all this free time and don't have to sit on webinars and answer emails or, be silly, kind of thing. I can do whatever I want to do and y'all come visit me. So yeah, so it just I mean, where are you in life? And I don't mean by age or by elemental P, X, Y, Z, whatever. It's where's your maturity level, right? Where are you at mentally, physically, in Maslow's hierarchy needs of food, shelter, family? Where are you there, right? And what's important and what's the values you put around that?
Well, and I love what Kathleen said. Kathleen in the chat said, I heard in a talk once, it's not work-life balance. It's never 50-50. It's about harmony. Are you focused where you need to be when you need to be? I think that's what we're all
Bingo.
doing, right?
Yep.
High five to
Way to go,
Kathleen out there.
Yeah. Somebody's saying also that they were located in a hurricane zone and a lot of employees were able to leave early because they had kids in daycare. So, there is, I've seen that
That's
too.
just about straight humanity, in my
Well,
opinion. Like,
well, we're talking
let's
hurricane.
just, if we're
Yeah.
talking hurricane, that's
Yeah.
just, you have to go, that's family first on that. Like,
That's
you got to make
safety.
sure that
That's
everybody's taken
safety.
care of. And
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
right. Like, if somebody doesn't understand that, then that's
Yeah.
just
But she's
being
also saying because she didn't
awareness.
have any kids, she couldn't go home or whatever.
Oh yeah, I see that. Well,
So
being a Miami native myself, I mean, you have to go home and batten
You
down the
do.
hatches. You
Right.
have to. I mean,
but look
there's
at you,
no
Laura.
two ways
That's
about
the
that.
day you knew you needed to leave the job. So yeah, you
Right.
make a decision,
Right.
ma'am. You
Mhm.
decide,
Because you've
are
got
you
to,
in align with what I think is important? I mean, my house is just as important as the house that houses kids.
Right.
My pet, I got 3 cats, but my
you got
cats
to
are my
take care of your
babies. I have to make
cats.
sure those babies are
Right.
fine.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I just want to say too, I'm reading the chat comments, and Rhonda and I are happy being Norma's backup dancers because she is the rock star. We
Hey,
all love her.
I know she's amazing. So
No.
let's go into mentorship a little bit. What are some good examples of mentorship? Did you benefit from mentorship? And why should somebody who's younger, whatever generation they might be, seek out mentorship? Anybody
Let
want
me
to
just
start?
grab this one to start. I mean, I'm a big proponent of the SITE Women in Leadership Mentorship Program, which Rhonda started and we're all very involved in. And the thing that I thought was, I think, yes, everyone benefits from mentorship. What surprised me at first when Rhonda said, would you be a mentor? Oh, sure. Yeah. I learned probably more from my mentee than they learned from me. So what we like to say now is that it's two-way mentorship, and especially with all the new technology, all these new things. But I think to be a mentor or a mentee, you just have to be open-minded, because I think I went into it at first thinking, oh yeah, I can teach them what I know. I learned so much more. And it's about opening your mind and saying, well, how would you do it? What do you think? And giving them the confidence to be able to say the way you guys did it was cracked. And as Norma said, they're so much better at setting boundaries, doing this kind of stuff. And we probably should have been, but I'm learning from so I think mentorship is amazing.
And I don't even know that sometimes that somebody's a mentor or that you're mentoring, because it's really what is in your heart. And like for us, we've been doing this mentorship program and it's incredible. To Anne Marie's point, we are learning so much from each other. But what you're able to give back all throughout life. I remember Jane Schull, God rest her soul, got me involved in SITE years ago. I didn't even know what SITE was. I didn't know anything of what I was getting into. And she kind of pushed me along the way. And it's amazing, what I've learned from that and how it's pushed me as an individual and just made me better, I think, in my career and personally. And I think that's where, you may not even see somebody as a mentor, but if you have the opportunity, because we didn't really talk about it that much back then, but I think now it's a word that everybody's really talking about, but it's really, really important. And it doesn't matter what age you're at or where you are in life, to have a mentor that you can actually just like throw different ideas at and be able to have conversations that you may not be comfortable with in business or even personally, that they can just, look at it objectively and say, here's what I've learned, and here's some things that you can do. You can help, introduce people. Just look at it as just an open slate of somebody that you can talk to about anything. But mentorship has been incredible. And I really give SITE a lot of credit for us in being able to do, a lot of the mentor programs that we have going on right now.
I would say there are different types of mentorship, right? So back to Anne Marie saying this women in leadership, I mean, that is such a personal mentorship for me, right? It's not a career thing, because half the time they tell me things that are going on. I was like, okay, y'all go do that and let me know what you need me to do. I don't care. So, but it's about how do these women deal with situations. And so it's a personal choice and it's a personal receivership. And it's the way I mentor other people, because there's nothing more fundamental to a human on this earth is to be seen and to be heard. And your mentor, whoever it is, should see you and hear you, or be open to seeing you and hearing you. And by that, I mean, when I mentor someone, we talk much more about personal choices than we do how your career is going to advance, because that's a discussion you should be having with your superior or the other leaders around you. And if I'm not your leader, we're not having that conversation, but we are having conversations about your personal growth, that you either have the tools or the communication skills or the confidence, or recognize sometimes I have hard conversations with people. There was a young girl who came to me, and she's precious. I swear, just darling. And she's a go-getter, go, all this full of energy. And I was like, dude, you need to slow down a little bit, because I'm not with you on this track. And so she is the workhorse, because she gets everything done. And so they give her more and more and more, because they know they'll get it done, and it'll get it done quick, right? And so she was getting burned out. And I said, I gave her an exercise. I said, I want you to have opposite day. And she was like, what? I said, you get up early in the morning and you work out, right? And she goes, yeah. I said, you hit snooze, and I want you to lay in that bed, even though you're awake, for an hour and a half afterwards. I said, you're always appropriately dressed. I want you to go dressed for the day with everything mismatched. She started like going into hives, I mean,
would
she
too.
was just, and I said, and I want you, I said, what's the worst thing? What's the thing you dread most with your husband? And she goes, he likes bowling. I said, I want you to sit your little fanny next to him on the couch and watch bowling for an hour. I said, just one opposite day, and so it's about personal choices and about bringing. So that's when I'm seeking to mentor someone, it's because I see something in them that really, really, really rings true or shines bright or whatever, right? And so, yeah, I think you choose your mentors for different reasons. I still have outside mentors
Mm-hmm.
right now. So it's for personal reasons, it's for validation, it's for the choices I make, and then that behavior carries over into my professional life.
And I also think it's not one mentor,
Yeah.
like Norma said. I
Yeah.
mean, surround yourself with strong women. And I look at both of my friends on this podcast as my mentors. And to have a strong group of women primarily that lift you up, that's everything. And they give it to you straight. As you guys would guess, if I say to Norma, I did this, what do you think? She'll tell you that's a horrible decision. Or so have people that you trust that will give it to you both ways, but really are looking to build you up and not push you down.
I mean, if any of y'all have been in therapy, and Lord knows I've paid my fill, it's about who do you have connectivity with. You cannot go to a therapist if you're just not even connecting or vibing on the same level. I mean, what good is that? A mentor is a therapist where you can be open and honest and discuss flaws and talk about successes and work towards whatever, personally or professionally, whatever it is. It's a therapy session. And just as good therapeutic for me as a mentor as I am as a
For
mentee.
sure.
Agreed.
It's a
Here's
gift, another gift, another gift.
another
Gift
gift.
keeps
Great.
giving.
Here's a great question. Is there anything in your movement into senior roles that you wish you had known or needed to know that you didn't? And how did you learn it? Great question.
I
I
love
think
that
your
question, Mary.
voice.
And I would like to say kind of what we just talked about is that you don't need to step on other people to get ahead, which is kind of what we learned growing up. It's like, oh, yeah, watch out for that person. You need to build everyone up. And when everyone is built up, everyone does better. So you don't need to push other people down to get ahead. And the people that support other people are the ones that are going to get ahead.
Such a great statement, Anne Marie. I think the other thing too is learning your voice. I think that's, and knowing how to really communicate, because I think, as you're going through your career, there is so much that you don't know, to your point, like that you didn't even know, and now you know it. But being able to ask questions, and honestly, you have to ask questions in order to be able to learn. And I think sometimes you can sit in meetings and you're afraid to ask that question because you think it's going to be a stupid question. Don't be afraid to ask it. Ask it and just say, I probably should know it, but you know what? I got to ask this anyway. And half the time, or more than 80% of the time, everybody else wants that same question too, but nobody's going to ask it. So ask the questions and don't be afraid of it.
And I'm going to say, if I could tell my younger self anything, and what I realized through some pretty painful processes in the last 5 to 7 years, truth matters. It matters. It's scary. And a lot of times, depending on the truth that you speak, if it's not serving someone else's benefit, there could be some repercussions, right? Or if it's highlighting something that's wrong, there could be it's not going to be an easy road. But when you speak the truth for the right reasons, you get through it. And there were many, many years, because I'm a Latina, and I will tell you right now, there are only 2 Latina leaders in all of global sales in the US base, that are my level and above. And so I, you know, even though I was like, what the hell? What they taught, kind of, I never spoke, but all those people are gone and I'm still there. And the people that still received my truth are still there, right? And so it just matters, man. And if you say it for the right reason, not for my own benefit, that's the big deal. You can't, it can't be a personal, it has to be for the overall organization's benefit. So, one of the examples I will give you is that, like, before George Floyd, I just said to the leaders in the room, let's talk about the proverbial white elephant. And they looked around. I said, no, like literally, it was all men, and then we got this discussion going. And so then we founded a diversity, equity, inclusion kind of steering committee that evolved into post George Floyd. We were ahead of everybody else, right?
Mhm.
But it was because I looked around and there weren't many people like me in the room.
Mhm.
So, everybody was like, whoa. But they come around, and when truth matters, it just does when it's for the right reasons. And it's
Right.
not self-serving truth.
Yeah, somebody here is saying, if you feel
That's
uncomfortable
great.
speaking up, write down your question. And, like you said, don't be afraid to ask it. But something that somebody asked earlier was about hybrid situations. And I had a question here about that as well with telecommuting. Are these circumstances kind of lessening the things that we've been talking about during the hour, as far as maybe office politics or even harassment or ageism? Is it possible that being online is or just seeing your colleagues like we're seeing each other right now, is that making a difference in the business world, how people interact?
Yes, I would
Mhm.
say. You
Mhm.
know, again, it depends on your objective.
Mhm.
I work from home and I'm fine with that, right? But occasionally I make a point of going in the office like every other week or whatever, just to see people. You miss a lot of things if you're not there.
Yeah.
You
You
just
do.
do. You just do. And so if you're not going that extra mile to like for instance, this is recorded, right? And
Right.
if this was recorded in my company in Delta, how many people actually know that there's a recording there and go back and listen to the whole hour of it, right?
Right.
You miss a lot of things not being there. You miss a lot of things not being present.
Right.
So either accept that and know you're not going to be in the know all the time,
Right.
or make a point of having more
It's a great
presence
point.
and visibility. And
Mm.
the collaboration is there. And yeah, I mean, it's just, you just miss a lot of things not being in person. And I'm okay with that. But
Yeah.
some people who want to advance their career and want to be a part of everything, you can't have it both ways, people. I'm just saying. What do you think, Rhonda?
Yeah, you've got to figure out how to build those relationships when you're not in the office all the time. So figure out those opportunities where you can connect more with the people, because it's
Mhm.
about the culture, right? And you can't really feel the culture unless you have had that opportunity to spend with them. But you're
Mhm.
right. Like I work remote as well, but I do go into our office probably once a month, and I love being in the office, but it's just a totally different experience than when you're working remote. Everything is done through the screen, and that can be very productive, but it's also exhausting, like being in front of a screen all day long. Like I'm standing up right now. I am one that has to move. I would love to be able to just go from office to office and walk
Yeah.
around and talk to people because I need to move. When I'm in front of a screen, I mean, it's by the end of the day, I'm like, I'm out. I got to go just go for a walk because this is so exhausting for me. So I think it depends, everybody's a little bit different, but you've got to figure out how you're going to be able to bridge that gap
Mhm.
when you're working more remote, to figure out what works for you.
And I agree with both my colleagues. I just think you just have to be more intentional. And we
Yeah.
kind of mentor, the people on our team that if that's what you're looking for is more exposure, they have reminders to post something on LinkedIn or to do things or to send, like Norma said, send the recording. If you do a recording, send it to your senior leadership. And don't be afraid to kind of toot your own horn, because it doesn't happen as naturally with the remote. But to your question, Lisa, I do think it lessens some of those other issues
Mm-hmm.
because you're just not in the office physically.
And
Mhm.
it
Sure.
depends on what your job is, right?
Right.
I mean, in sales, there's 0% of sales being done in the office. I need to be on the road, right?
Right.
So I was
You're not going to be in
already
the office anyway.
to that. And as unpopular as this will be out in webcast land or whatever, I'm a smoker. So if I gotta bust out some things, I like smoking and banging things out and getting it all done like that, right? So in the office, I can't do anything that requires that I go and like really put thought together to a presentation or speaking points for the C suite, or things like I need to be able to be like this. I'm not going to go in the office to do that where people go, "Hey, can I talk to you for a second?" No, you can't. Then I turn out to be not the most pleasant person. Plus, I'm not smoking, so. So it depends on what you got to do, man.
Right. So I think we've answered, unless our audience has any more questions, I think we've been answering them as we've gone along, at least. I've written down the ones that came through and they did get answered, but I was going to go back quickly to the issue of DEI and leveling the playing field. And what does that mean? Um, does it mean giving special consideration to another group, or what is that leveling of the field?
I'm gonna take this because I'm the DE&I executive
Yeah.
sponsor for Delta Airlines globally, global sales, global sales. First of all, diversity, equity, inclusion means not seeing color, not seeing race, not seeing gender, not seeing any of that. That everyone has the same opportunity, right? And if everything was in an equitable environment, you'd see more of a blend and more of a conscript of what people are integrated in at different levels. And it, to this day, it remains important because I know that at Delta Airlines, we have, an opportunity to promote more Black people. That doesn't mean that as a Latina or an Asian or a white person or whatever, we just need to make sure that we have people in the pipeline that were never given that hand to be mentored or included or spotlighted or whatever, and talking to people and saying, do you have the tools that you need? Do you have the champion? You know, oftentimes I'm not a champion at the table for other positions, but I'll make sure somebody who is knows this person.
Mhm.
So where do you get the hand up? Where do you get the lifting? How do you climb, regardless of who you are? And do you all have equal access to that? And it's not just a good old boys society. So I think
Yeah,
it's more
100%.
important today than it ever has been. I am so proud of the strides we've made and the role that I've played in this. Nobody's going to remember I handled a $3 billion organization, but they will remember that Norma Dean fought for diversity, equity, inclusion.
Yep.
Wonderful.
Again,
Well, I
mic
think
drop.
yeah, go ahead. Do you have
Yep.
something?
Nope.
you
No more.
Nope. We can't follow that, Lisa.
wanna- Right. I think that's a showstopper. So thank you all so much for participating today. And I hope our attendees enjoyed it and got a lot out of it. I think they did from their comments. And again, thanks for joining us and have a great rest of your day, everybody.
Thanks for including us. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Appreciate it.
everybody.
Hey, thanks for including us and listening to
Yes.
us. We just talk amongst ourselves sometimes. So it's good to have other people.
That's right. Thank you, guys.
Take care. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.